Hello viewers and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about the tech show that took place last week in London, hosted at the Excel. Do stick around to the end because I have got a couple of things to show you that I just wasn't expecting to happen at a tech show. There's a whole host of different vendors there, selling rack space, cables, different initiatives for handling physical equipment. Then there's the cloud space where there was a lot of information around DevOps, DevSecOps, AI, data management, and also just the cloud platform itself and these individual tools that have been, created to solve very particular problems. So I started the day off by going and see their main stage keynote speaker, which was Brian Cox. Brian Cox is a physicist studying cosmology, and first of all I was a little bit confused as to why he was there, because I thought this was a tech show and how, I didn't quite connect the dots with tech show and space and black hole learning. However, after listening to his speech, which I'll post a link to a very similar one down below, he explained how black hole theory can be further developed and understood by leveraging quantum computing, and how there's the potential for information that is lost through a black hole to be regurgitated and then reconstructed using quantum computing. I mean, at least that's the theory. I mean, I'm not a physicist, but that was what I came away with. And it really opened up my eyes to how there's this sort of like this bridge forming between scientific development in deep space learning and quantum computing. It seems like quite an exciting field to get involved with. After I had my mind blown by Brian Cox and his deep space learning, I moved on to GitLab, where they were given a presentation about their one-stop solution for all DevSecOps. It was a pipeline solution where, they would host, obviously, the source code. They would then manage the pipelines. They would do the vulnerability scanning, and it was a fantastic solution. The way in which you can come to one place and manage all your code and manage the deployment and manage the security on one platform is a really appealing sort of development. 4 or 5 different tools for our deployment. And there is definitely a part of me that wanted to come away going, do you know what, I'm going to start using GitLab in all my solutions. Their biggest push was just how to enable developers and streamline the process. I mean, there wasn't really much to argue with. It's a fantastic idea, and going forwards, I might give it a go. After GitLab's presentation, it was no surprise that the trend continued throughout the day. The majority of vendors there for DevSecOps and DevOps were all focusing around ways in which they can improve the deployment process and making it secure for the developer. And JFrog was another vendor who came about with a very one-stop shop for their deployment pipeline. The caveat, or rather their benefit that they were pushing, and it was a very good benefit to be fair, is that when they run their vulnerability scanning, it will tell you whether or not it's relevant to you, if it's relevant to you in your code. We all know that experience where the vulnerabilities come out and there's 100 vulnerabilities, 100 CVEs, and you're like, where do I need to start with this? How do I start making my code secure? Whereas what JFrog were saying was, on their platform, they will tell you, they will analyze your code, and they will tell you whether or not your code is actually vulnerable and if this CVE is applicable, which could reduce the number from 100, 200 CVEs down to about 10. Equally, by working with AI tools, as we all are now, it could tell you how to mitigate it in the future, how to implement the fix. It really is a one-stop shop for just seamless deployment. What more could you want? GitHub, however, were not focused so much on the deployment pipeline process, as they know they have their GitHub Actions and the projects and source code control. They've got that covered. Their main focus has been their Copilot, which is their AI tool, which is a plugin for VS Code, and in the future I believe it's coming to JetBrains as well, and how it's a part of the development team. They want you to leverage Copilot as a development team member rather than just using it as a tool. And since it has access to the code that you are working on, it can actually, be involved. It can see your code, it can run the test, it can build the tests, it can, insert what you need. It can literally update it as you're typing it with, prompts. A bit like when you're writing a text on your phone and it gives you the autocomplete. The Copilot is doing the same thing when you're writing your code, which is a fantastic kit. And the fact that you don't have to context switch out of your IDE to the browser to use the likes of Gemini or ChatGPT makes that development process, the development lifestyle, just to feel a little bit more streamlined. Of course, these things are not always sunshine and rainbows. There was a presentation on the malicious use of AI and how black hat hackers are leveraging this tool to improve their workflows in targeting, their victims. And that was a perspective that I haven't really looked at before, and I haven't even considered. I mean, every day I use an AI tool in some form or another, whether it be to help me write my blogs or with my day-to-day code management. If I just need to check some indentation, it's my go-to tool, and that's how I see it and that's how I use it. But it never occurred to me that equally these black hat hackers could be out there leveraging the same tool to optimize their cybercrime. And it was a fantastic presentation and something that I'm going to look into a bit more just to get a better understanding of, and how I can potentially, protect myself from these people. It was very much this is how it's all going to happen. This is how Skynet's going to be built. Somebody in a dark corner somewhere is going to build their own AI model that's going to, be Skynet and take over the world. It was pretty cool. It was awesome, but also terrifying at the same time. Another interesting presentation that I attended was presented by 3 women in tech. It was a presentation on diversity in the workplace and how far we've come, what the problems still are now, and how far we need to go in ways in which we can actually improve it in the workplace. I felt slightly out of place, as of course not a woman in tech. However, I do have 2 daughters, one of which wants to be a woman in tech, so it was very educational for me to understand what I can do in my day-to-day life to, address these things that are happening. Also, the advice that they gave out for women in tech, I can now, reiterate to my daughter, and that will then help her in her work life. The panel was head up by a former Meta employee, Airbnb employee, and a former AWS architect. Now, my understanding of Octopus Deploy has always been a little bit dated, so I've always seen them as like a deployment method for older VMs, and I've never really paired them with the likes of Kubernetes and microservices, the same way that I would with like Argo CD. But they had a booth there, and I went over and spoke to the engineer there, and he told me that actually that's where they're going. That's what they're pushing for now. They are now going to be integrating with Kubernetes to make their deployment cycle smoother. They've recently got into a merger with CodeFresh, who do a very similar sort of thing, and he explained their roadmap and showed me some of the white papers of how their deployment process is going to be changing over the coming months, and it's actually very exciting. It would make me rethink Octopus Deploy, and I'm potentially going to go away and have a look at this roadmap in further detail, and maybe even spin up my own deployment just to see if it's any better than what it used to be. Now, when I attended this tech show, I'm not going to lie, I wasn't quite sure what to expect. I didn't know it was going to be as big as what it was. I didn't know there'll be as much physical stuff as what there was. But the one thing I 100% did not expect was to see a DeLorean parked up in the show, let alone 2 DeLoreans, one of which I actually was able to sit in. And here's a terrible picture of me, but I'm very happy. I've always loved Back to the Future, and it's been a childhood dream of mine to be able to sit in a DeLorean, and I'll just show you again, because it's so awesome. It made the day that much sweeter, the fact that I was able to engage and network and meet all these people, and then, of course, get to sit in a really, really cool car. But that wasn't all. In addition to that, I then got to meet an influencer who I follow on YouTube and inspired me to start making my own YouTubes, and that was Lucy Wang. She was one of the people doing the presentation about diversity in the workplace, and she is a cloud content creator. And here is another great picture of me looking terribly, cheesy. We had a small conversation, and I'm pretty sure I fumbled my whole way through it because we're only human, and when we meet people that we think are awesome, we lose it.